Hey everyone, this is Tracy Friedlander. You're listening to Crushing Classical, redefining a thriving classical music career. On the show today, I have pianist Lisa Spector. Lisa's story is incredible. She's an entrepreneur who has started several businesses, including one unique business that combined her love of dogs and her music, creating numerous albums to calm anxious dogs. When she had a traumatic fall in 2017, she was forced to put everything on hold to focus on her healing journey. This is when things get really interesting because she was told numerous times that she would never play the piano again. What she did next was astounding, and you'll hear the story today. And now, after a long healing process, she helps other musicians through their healing journeys. Lisa's point of view through her own comeback story is incredible. This episode is a must-hear for everyone. The way she sees and understands the mental side of overcoming obstacles is pure gold. I can't wait for you to hear it. But before we get started, there's a couple of quick things I want you to know about. So many people are doubling down on their teaching businesses this year. Is that you? Are you thinking about how you could make more money? Maybe even attract more of your ideal students? And wouldn't it be nice if you could actually do that without spending more one-on-one time teaching private lessons, trading hours for dollars? You might even be wondering if that's even possible. If these ideas intrigue you, I want you to know about my new free report, Get More Students, Attract Top Quality Students that are a joy to work with and pay you top dollar. This report will show you how you can make more money, have more time, find your ideal student, and actually build a studio you love. The link to download the report is in the show notes. And by the way, this report is for you whether you have a full studio already or you're starting from scratch, whether you're teaching lessons or looking to attract students or clients to offer them something different in your area of expertise. In addition to that, I also want you to know about a really cool payment and scheduling platform you need to know that can transform the way you schedule your lessons and collect payments. FONS is a company co-founded by a friend of mine, and he's a guitarist, Eric Branner. He was also a guest on Crushing Classical. And FONS streamlines the entire business and admin side of lessons, from scheduling to payments, to integrating Zoom into your calendar like everyone is doing now. FONS takes care of it all. When you use FONS, scheduling becomes a breeze. Students get email reminders. They always know the Zoom link. And no more chasing after payments. Everything comes through on one platform and results in a direct deposit to you. If you'd like to try FONS now, for a limited time, you can try it for 15 days free. And if you decide to move your business over to the platform, we both get $100. That's right, they'll credit you $100 if you stick with it. Use my link in the show notes to get that deal. Let's get started. Welcome, Lisa.
Tracy, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on Crushing Classical. So you introduced yourself to me on Instagram, and I was blown away by the things you've been creating in your career. So many awesome things. But the first one I want to talk about is music for anxious dogs.
Yes, that's one of my specialties. I actually call myself a pianopreneur because I've created a variety of different businesses using my piano talents. And one of them is music for dogs. I've been called by NPR, I've been called the pet calming maestro. And I love that because I love dogs and I love using my music talents to help them. So I have a 10-year history of creating music designed to calm dogs and relieve anxieties. And everything from separation anxiety to sound phobias, excessive barking, even aggression issues. And I developed that, some of the best things in life really seem like they happened by accident at the time. And then you look back and you look at the synchronicity of events and it's kind of amazing. So at the time, I was a volunteer puppy raiser for guide dogs for the blind way back in 2003. I also owned a music school. That was probably my first real business as a musician. And I taught a class of 4-year-olds. And I was learning different prescriptions of music that I could use to calm them and keep them focused.
So was it just you were just experimenting with that since you were playing?
I was experimenting with I would do it when they were coming in the room. So I wasn't at the piano, I was using recordings and I was
Okay.
experimenting what worked. And then what I noticed is my 4-month-old rambunctious puppy, while the students would come in 30 seconds, the puppy would be snoozing in a minute. And it's like, this is something. So I actually worked with a veterinary neurologist who ran a research study test. It had already been proven that classical music calms dogs,
Mhm.
that, and at least in one study in 2001 and many studies since then. But I wanted to find out if it actually relieved anxiety issues. And so with a veterinary neurologist, we worked and tested a bunch of dogs and found the right prescription that worked and had a business in that for 10 years. I left that in 2018 and recently started a new company called My Zen Pet. And a lot of it focuses on lower frequencies that have been proven to calm the canine nervous system. And my left hand, we're going to talk about why I play with my left hand, but my left hand plays lower frequencies. So it's perfect for dogs.
Wow. So it just sort of came out of an observation. You already had puppies in your house and you observed. I mean, I know how it is when you have puppies. You just want them, just calm down, please. And so you noticed this was already happening.
Exactly. So, guide dog puppies are raised to be calm. They're bred to be calm, but 4-month-old labs are pretty rambunctious. So I was looking for anything. I was working, and he was with me all the time.
Yeah.
So, and he actually did get career change. So he became my pet, Sanchez. And now I have another guide dog career change dog, Gina, who's right by my side. She's a black lab. And so she gets to be by the piano all the time listening to this. In fact, she just took over. We're getting so busy that I just gave her the position of CWO, Chief Wolf Officer at My Zen Pet. She writes all the emails now. She does the social, everything.
That's so cute. Well, I love it. So, when I'm listening to you tell the story, I really think we should point out that I think it's really cool and unique that what came out of just simply observing something, you took action on that. You got in touch with a veterinary neurologist, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
I didn't even know there was that, but that's cool.
At that time, there were only 150 in the United States. So there aren't that many.
So you had to go down some rabbit holes and go searching for that. And then you connected with one and took action on what, you just created that niche. I mean, sure, I know people have talked about that, play Mozart for your dog, but now you're talking about actually writing music now. Then you started writing the music, right?
Not exactly writing it. So in those days, there were rearrangements of classical, of Bach, of Schubert, of Chopin. Okay. Now I do it differently because it's based on newer research. So now I look at myself as I'm the curator of these compositions for dogs. I'm not rearranging Schubert and Bach and Chopin and Beethoven, but I'm finding the right music that is designed for them. What I have rearranged, though, is music for left hand only. So whether I'm playing music with my left hand and I start each of the volumes of Doggone Calm, which will be out just around the time that we're airing this, and it starts with left hand only. But replying to your comment of I observed, so that's what. And I feel like that's what an entrepreneur does. And we're all, as musicians, invited to do that. When someone says to me, I'm not going to go to school and major music, I'm going to starve. And I say, well, if you're looking at one narrow way to do it, probably. But if you open your mind and stay with what's around you, if I can make a career, I'm a pet calming maestro, if I can make a career out of creating music for dogs, any two passions can be combined to make a business out of.
I love that so much. That's so much. I think that's the theme here for sure. So, I mean, you mentioned that you learned to really just focus on the left hand. It was because of an injury, right?
Right. So in 2017, I took a bad fall and my right hand was crushed. My soul was crushed. I ended up with 7 fractures in my right hand that needed 4 surgeries over 3 years, 2 very immediate surgeries. I was diagnosed with CRPS pretty soon, and that complex regional pain syndrome is sometimes known as the suicide disease because it's so painful. When I went, as soon as I was diagnosed with it, after the first 2 surgeries, I was seeing a hand therapist, and all I wanted to do was play piano. I was like, when am I going to play? Am I going to play? And I said, am I going to play again? And she said, look at your hand. How could you? And I was devastated. And then I thought, she doesn't know what I'm capable of, and she doesn't know what my hand can do. I fired her. And I found I stayed with a surgeon who's very good. And I found alternative health, lots of alternative health therapies, trauma therapy, acupuncture, Qigong, Feldenkrais, everything else, and a new hand therapist. I stayed with that hand therapist till she retired last year.
Wow.
186 hand therapy sessions, 2 more surgeries. I am very happy to report that I proved the first hand therapist wrong. One is because while my right hand was still in cast, I started playing music for left hand only. And I realized I don't make music with my fingers, I make music with my heart. So as long as my heart is first, I'm playing piano. And then gradually I had 8 fingers. I actually had a piece written for me for 8 fingers because I had use of my left hand plus 1, 2, and 3 of my right hand. And Zach Gullibuff Davis is incredibly talented composer, wrote a beautiful nocturne for me, and then subsequently 2 more for 10 fingers. And then I started gradually playing more and more with my right hand, building up my extension. And the way I'm now doing full programs, I don't play them perfectly. There are chords I can't reach that I could reach when I was 11 years old. But my motto is screw perfect, just make music. And when I keep that in mind, and that's the important thing, I did not learn that at Juilliard. I learned the opposite at Juilliard. I learned at Juilliard, you don't walk on stage unless you're prepared to play perfectly. You don't enter international competitions unless you know you can play perfectly. So I was kind of raised with a different belief system, and my healing began when I changed my belief system.
Wow. So how did you change your belief system? I mean, that's not an easy task. Right. Most people would have crumbled in the news from that original hand therapist that you would never play piano again. They would have crumbled. But you said, that's not true. And I'm moving on. So, gosh, first of all, I guess it's 2 questions. Like, where do you get that inner drive to know that what you're capable of? And then how did you change your belief system?
I have been asked that a lot, and I'm challenged with an answer because I don't really remember a time I wasn't this tenacious. But I know there are some early childhood. I'm writing a memoir on this. So I know from the writing that there's some very early childhood and even memories before I remember when I was a baby, and things that caused this tenacious attitude.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them is that I was excessively shy as a child. Like, I didn't speak. My parents brought me to a child psychologist when I was 4 years old because I wasn't speaking yet. And they were like, what's wrong with her? And they said, she's fine. She's just a late bloomer. I was so quiet. But when I found a piano, when I was 7, I heard my mother play piano for the first time. Those keys were a magnet. They just drew me in. My fingers had to be playing. So I was so shy, but my fingers were my voice. So when my finger was almost detached from my body, I mean, it was just so deformed, I felt like I lost my voice. So it didn't feel like just getting my hand back or regaining strength in my hand. It felt like it was everything. And then on top of that, because I was so crazy busy for 10 years with the dog music company I was with, that I co-founded, I lost perception. I was spending very little time. I was spending so little time at the piano that I felt like if I was at the piano in the middle of the day, I generally got to the piano early morning for a few 15 minutes and maybe late at night for 10 minutes. But if I played the piano during business hours, I felt like I was having an affair. I felt like I was cheating in my business. Right? So that was no longer acceptable to me. That was not how I wanted to live my life. And so when you almost lose what you had forgotten that you love most in life, something changes, and your your muscle kicks in to like, no matter what, I am making music. No matter how I have to do that, I'm making music. When people came up to me and said, so this is it? You're done? You're not? I would look at them like they were from Mars. Like, what are you talking about? No, I'm not done. And the first 6 months were the most challenging because I wanted a time frame. Like, when is this over? When do I get my hand back? And when will it be like I used to be? The healing began when I let go of the need to it be like it used to be, when I let go of the time frame. If anyone going forward had told me it was going to take like 4+ years, I'd be like, oh my God, that's forever. Looking back, it doesn't seem like forever. And that feeling of letting go and making room for the gifts and the miracles that were to come that I never could have dreamed up. I don't want my hand back. I want the hand I have right now.
Wow. That's so powerful. I'm blown away by that. That's so amazing. That is such a process.
I actually coach musicians. The other thing is, during this time, I read the research shows that you probably know this from experience, 1 out of 2, 50% of musicians that get injured quit their instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Some early on, I just had the surgery, maybe 2 weeks into this. My right hand's in a cast. I'm at a gathering, there's a piano. I sit down and play scrub and prelude for left hand. And someone comes up with tears. He's a guitarist. He says, Lisa, I put my guitar in its case 10 years ago. I have arthritis in my pinky, so I haven't allowed myself to play guitar. I look at you and I realize there's no more excuses. I'm taking that guitar out and I'm playing again.
Wow.
And that changed me. And that's not only was I not only playing for myself and to feed my soul, but I was helping other people. And it's become so important that I actually have part of my business is I play on coaching, inspiring musicians who have had either physical or emotional setbacks, and often they're combined, to play on, no matter what, to play on in the face of adversity and be resilient. And I teach them the skills to do that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So yeah, your word needs to get out because people everywhere need to hear this who have been injured. So inspiring.
And sometimes it's not even an injury. I teach a lot of adults, a lot of newly retired people, and sometimes arthritis is a big one. It's just, and it plays a mind. It's the whole mindset needs to shift of, I want to play like I used to play. When you let go of that and you realize you really don't, you want to play the way you play right now, because there are gifts in that. And it's all about opening your heart and making music and having that come first.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm sure you've heard of the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yes.
Yeah. This reminds me of that because he was someone who was told he would never walk again.
Right.
And he said, no. And he healed that from that. Like,
and now look at all the people he's healing, just, thousands to hundreds of thousands. Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
It is.
And he has some pretty amazing research going on too.
Oh yeah. The mind is so incredibly powerful.
Right.
So incredibly powerful. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about you. So you went to Juilliard.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, that's a drastic mindset shift from everything needs to be perfect. This is the top level music conservatory, probably, definitely like in the country or the world. And that was instilled in you as a student. So how much of this was unlearning that, or was it instant?
It was not instant at all. It was a lot of unlearning. So I went to Juilliard a long time ago, so that maybe that helped a little bit. But still, what's ingrained in you is what's ingrained in you. And at the same time, very early on, I think maybe my hand was still in cast. So it was early on. I'm reading Leon Fleischer's memoir. my 9 lives. So Leon Fleischer is a phenomenal pianist. He recently passed on he was at age 92, I believe. And I heard him on his 90th birthday recital. I've heard him many times. I took some lessons with him, and he lost use of his right hand. Ironically, the same fingers I had challenged with, that I broke, my 4 and 5, my ring finger and my pinky and my right hand. He had the opposite problem. He had focal dystonia, where those fingers involuntarily curl under. Mine is getting them open and extended. And so I'm reading this, and I'm, 40 to 50 years, he's like, and he never gave up. And I read this New York Times article with him, probably written maybe 15 years ago. And he did eventually get use of both hands, but he also accepted he didn't recover from focal dystonia. He lived with focal dystonia, and he accepted that it brought him all these gifts. He became a fabulous teacher, and he admitted he was so much of a better teacher because of his hand challenges, and conductor, and so many other. I mean, he was just legendary in what he's done for the classical music world. And in this New York Times interview, he was asked, everyone told you it was over. Everyone told you he had so many surgeries and rolfing and tried this therapy and that therapy and tried everything. And everyone told you it was over. And here you are playing with 2 hands. Why do you think that is? And he said, because I always believed I would. So here I am reading this memoir. And also he goes, this was like private piano lessons, because he's going into all the details of him playing the Brahms D minor piano concerto, what he went through with his right hand, and he was, an esteemed concert pianist. I mean, one of the legendary best. So he couldn't afford to walk on stage and drop notes and not be able to play things, not have his hand react. And I say that based on not my opinion, but I say that what he believed, what he was writing. And I'm not looking to play Carnegie Hall. My mission in life has always been to demystify classical music. I want to get in living rooms, in which I've been doing a lot this year because I've been on screen so much. I'm looking to where I don't care if I attract the New York Times music critic or the classical music connoisseur. I want the average my favorite comment in the world, my favorite comment I get often because of this dog music is, I didn't know I loved classical music so much. That's what I want to do. I want to turn people on to classical music. It doesn't need perfection to do that. Most people couldn't even tell if there's a problem with my right hand. Yeah. But, a New York Times critic could.
Exactly. And so I'm so glad you brought that up about, the differences now with what's going on in the world and how you're able to get inside people's living rooms virtually. And what you were saying about wishing things were the way they used to be, I feel like this applies to the situation now in the world, because so many musicians are saying they just want things to go back to normal, back the way they used to be. And honestly, I'm sure there's lots of things that everyone wishes would go back to normal. But I did the whole, not only freelance scene, but also, playing full-time in an orchestra. And there are plenty of things that you wouldn't necessarily want to go back that way, right? And so there's that, but there's also now in the way that the world is now, there are opportunities, and you're someone who sees new opportunity even in the face of not being able to use one of your hands to play the piano. So what's your point of view on that whole kind of feeling and mindset of, I'm so upset with how things are right now, and I just wish things would go back to normal?
That's where all the pain comes from. When the pandemic first hit, it felt strangely familiar to me. Even though I never lived through a pandemic and never been through this social distancing and masking and all that. But what I was hearing people say, when is it going to be normal? When can we go back to the way it used to be? Was what I was saying when I was first newly injured. And it felt so normal that it actually felt comfortable to me at the beginning of the pandemic, because it felt like I've been here, I've done this, we can do hard things. To quote Glennon Doyle, I just love that comment. And I feel like it's we think we want it to be like the way it used to be, but we don't. Of course, if you think about it, so we're now we're recording this around the third week of March, and we're waiting to hear when I'm going to be vaccinated, and my mom's been vaccinated, and my brother, and it's like, can you imagine how that first hug is going to feel? I can guarantee it's going to feel better than any hug I've ever given my mother in her life. She's about to turn 90. So I don't want to ever take a hug for granted again.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want things to be back. I want to appreciate the things I've learned to appreciate this year, including I have performed more in 2020 than any year of my life, because
Wow.
I started a Facebook Live series. I started March 28th, and every Saturday night I was on with a I didn't even know I had so much repertoire. And it was so fun because I was doing left hand only and two hands while sharing my story of resilience at the perfect timing.
Wait a second. You've been doing that for almost a whole year, every week?
I stopped. So here's what happened. I did 30 of them. And then the reason I stopped, first of all, I got very busy with online courses, but second of all, Facebook Live changed all the artificial intelligence. A lot of your classical music listeners probably know this. It got so challenging because on Beethoven's birthday, 250th birthday, I'm playing Beethoven. On Instagram Live, I get, and this happened also on Facebook, when I'm playing the piano, when I'm talking to the audience, I'm looking at the device. When I'm playing the piano, I'm looking at the keyboard, and then I turn the camera, it's off. They shut it off because that sounds like a recording of Rubinstein playing the Beethoven sonata. I was like, thank you very much, but it's not. So
Really?
the copyright, yes, the artificial intelligence just is so against music written a long time ago. And every time I play something, they say, oh, this is muted in these countries because your Chopin nocturne sounded like Rubinstein's recording of it. It's like, great compliment, but so anyhow, I am looking for a way to go back. And so what I've changed to is I now do these private, personalized concerts on Zoom. No one kicks me off of Zoom. So I have those on my website.
Oh, wow. I can't believe that they limit that. That's ridiculous.
It's so you search it, there's New York Times articles written on this. It's so frustrating, particularly when all the the whole classical music scene was so struggling at the beginning of the pandemic and throughout, and the symphonies, and then here they are. Yeah, it's really challenging. So if you notice the big names, they've gone to there's been fabulous other platforms developed and grown in 2020 that for online streaming. So there's many others. It's just everyone lives on Facebook. It's hard to compete with.
Yeah. Well, this might be a good time to talk a little bit about Patreon. Do you do that?
I know Patreon extremely well. I am not doing it currently, but I might be by the time this airs. So,
right. Because if you're committed to giving a certain amount of content, and it's going to be a series or whatever, and that people want to hear that, why not grow that fan base around what you're doing?
Yes, I do have something in the works. I'm not going to divulge what it is yet, but by the time this airs, I can, and then we'll have it in the show notes. So it's okay. It's something similar.
That's so cool. So let's talk a little bit about business, because I know you've already mentioned you're a pianopreneur. I love that word. And you've started several businesses, including the one for music for dogs, but you also have teaching businesses. I love the idea of teaching. I mean, I know you probably teach lots of different types of pianists, but you specifically said that you help people who've been injured. So what about that aspect of your business? Is that only pianists, or is it all instrumentalists who've been injured?
That's all instrumentalists. Okay. So that's two ways: private coaching, I call it play on coaching, and I also teach a course called Winning the Mind Game for musicians. So that's everything from all instrumentalists, everything from even non-injured, no matter what. The most important thing about any practice session, about any performance, about any time you pick up your instrument or sit at the piano is what you put in your mind before you start. So I love teaching that. I love teaching students how, so many of my private students like, oh, it sounded I mean, we all know this. All us teachers know this. Like, it sounded so much better at home. I get so nervous for you. So I work with all that. It's like, how do you, I help them build all the muscles to be resilient through so that they're confident when they're practicing. And, they conquer the stage nerves when they're performing, whether it's on video or whether it's live. And then I also work with musicians who have been injured, because it's not, even my surgeon, and this is why I knew to keep him, even my surgeon, when we were after 2 surgeries, deciding about 3 and what could be done, he said, I can do all this for you, but the most important thing is what you do. It's so true. I mean, it depends on how I think about it. And the second therapist who I stayed with for so long, I loved her expression because it applies to so many things. Little by little, we rewarded the littlest tiny, it was all about extension for my hand, the littlest tiny improvement of extension we rewarded. So it never felt like, oh, I got to get all the way over there. I just felt like I just have to be here and get a tiny bit more today.
Yeah, I always say this to the people I work with too, that you have to acknowledge your wins, because every time you acknowledge a win, it builds upon that feeling of winning, of feeling, even if the win is so small, you got one thing done today or whatever,
Right.
Musicians always, I mean, maybe it's a human thing, but always focus on what's missing, what's not there yet,
Right.
This is
Right.
such an important message. And, I love this so much, and I love what you teach, but I also want to talk about the fact that you are essentially niching down a lot. Like, you're teaching musicians who have been injured, and that's based on your experience of healing from an injury, plus all the probably inner work that you had done in order to heal from your own injury, which is such valuable information. And I think one of the things I help people with all the time is how to incorporate their own unique experience, the knowledge that they've acquired and the learning that they've done outside of their own just learning their instrument, to incorporate it into a new point of view, a new way of working with people. A lot of times that's stuff you already were doing, right? Like, and you're turning it into a business, which is brilliant, because now more people can see, oh, I need Lisa for this problem I'm having. But, I'm working with people right now on a lot of 2 different clients of mine are helping people with mindset and kind of on the personal growth side, because playing an instrument is super, super mental, whether it's overcoming an injury or just achieving the things that you want to achieve. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, do you ever, I mean, it doesn't sound like you doubt that it's a good niche because you're doing it, but sometimes people say to me like, oh, do I really want to niche down that much? Do I really want to focus on that specific person who wants that specific thing? And what I found is yes, because then the person who's seeking you out actually knows that you are the exact person for them. So do you have any?
Exactly. So I've studied this a lot. I've taken a lot of business classes, and every single one says the same thing. Start narrow, get known for that thing, and then you can gradually increase. But look at if I just say, hey, doors open, I teach piano. Well, so does everyone else. What makes me unique? What makes me unique? And it seems so counterintuitive, because you think, oh, that's like too small an audience. It's like, it's really not, because then they begin to associate you as that person in that. And like along the lines of what you were saying, what happens is oftentimes it's something you do naturally. Oftentimes it's something you think, well, I couldn't teach that. That's just so easy. Well, it's not easy for everybody. It's muscles I've built, so it's become easy. And then it's just getting the systems in place to like, how did I do this? And then writing it all down. And what we were talking about a little earlier, that's so basic for any musician. I write, and I got this out of my dog training, I'll talk about in a second, but I have my students in Winning the Mind Game and in my private coaching, first assignment, write down after your practice session, and ideally keep a notebook. So after every practice session, 3 things that went well. 3 things. So what happens is your mind starts searching for things that go well, and then more and more things go well, instead of saying, oh, I missed that drill, I missed that octave. I run a sport that's just so fun called dog agility, and there's generally about 20 obstacles. There's A-frames and jumps and teeter-totters, and it's a blast. It's a time plus precision team sport with your dog. And you get done with a run, and it's competitive, but you're competing with yourself or your title or your dog's title, whatever. And you get done with the course, and so often, how'd it go? Oh, my dog missed the weave pulls. And like, well, how the other 19 obstacles go? I don't focus on that. So because I'm not or didn't used to be as confident in agility as I am at playing piano, that's what I started doing. I started writing down 3 things that went well. I took a seminar from a psychologist who's an agility handler, and that was her suggestion of write down 3 things. And for years I did this, and it totally changed my confidence level.
And you're like, wait, I already tell my piano students this, and I'm not doing it in this other area. It's so true. Like how you can tell your own students something and then go,
it was the other way around. I just did an agility, and then I applied it to piano.
Oh, okay.
I got it from agility. And it was like, because piano, I didn't need to so much because it just came naturally. It's one of those things.
Right.
But then,
we're used to it.
Yeah. And then I thought, well, yeah, this is important. And it changes everything for everyone.
That's so great. I know I tell my clients all the time in my group programs, I tell them it's extra credit to write it down every day, but we publicly report it once a week in our group. Great. And it's so helpful. And it's easy to fall off the wagon. It really is easy to fall off the wagon and not do it every single day. Like at night, I had a journal by my bed, and I would write 3 things that were wins for the day. Because of this conversation, I'm going to start doing it again. And anyone who's listening to this podcast right now, that's your challenge. I want to hear, like, DM me on Instagram if you start doing this, and copy Lisa, and we'll have a little group chat talking about the wins that were reported.
I love it. It's my favorite topic. And I do the same. I've had a gratitude journal for at least 20 some odd years of writing down at bedtime.
You do it every day?
Oh.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a habit that's hard. It's hard to build the habit of doing something every day, besides practicing your instrument, right? To do
so something. I tell my students often, it's only awkward the first 149 times. And then think about it. It's the same with agility. So research actually does show that it's 21 days to make a habit. So, till it feels like it's brushing your teeth and it's just part of the nighttime routine. The only thing that's changed, I've gone from a physical journal to doing it on my device, so that then I review it at the end of the year. It really, and you want to hear something really kind of mind-blowing that's so simple.
Yeah.
That, feels like it's off topic, but it's about life. When I review it at the end of the year, almost always, they're very simple things. Like, I enjoyed time at the ocean with my dog. I played piano first thing in the morning. I, took time to enjoy my meal outside. I mean, just really simple things, but those are the things that make your life.
Mm.
And sometimes it's like I heard this new piece of music, things that like are so simple, but they're so rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, what, maybe doing it on my device would actually make it more simple. I don't have to go looking for the journal. Where did I put it or whatever? Because I'm always plugging in my phone and turning it off before bed, or turning it on airplane mode right before bed.
Right.
So that would be something super simple, just to have a note.
Right.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Right. That's brilliant. Lisa, you've almost made me cry like 3 times. I'm just going to admit it publicly on this episode, because
you ask great questions.
Thanks. I mean, I think this is a really powerful conversation to have at this time in history, and in this time in musicians' lives, where people are dealing with a lot of stuff. It really, like, to have some, a few things that we can do that are just simple, just really simple things to change, just to make things better. you know?
Exactly. It doesn't take much. And it really is. I have found, I mean, it's not only it's research, but I have found this. It's 21 days to make a habit. And it doesn't even have to be 21 consecutive days either. So it's
Really?
just, yeah. So getting in that habit of doing that. Yeah.
Good. That's good to hear because, another thing that happens sometimes, I'm sure people will resonate with this, is that if you do fall off the wagon, you think, I ruined it. I ruined it. Now I've started over. So it's good to know, like if I've done it for 2 weeks and then I don't do it for a week, well, if I pick up again, it's okay because I already put in those other 2 weeks. We're just going to pick up where we left off.
Exactly. Exactly. You are where you are. And that's part of what we were talking about earlier of like, you can't get back what happened. It's like you are where you are, and that's where the joy comes from.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I'm learning Spanish right now. How many times have I said, God, I wish I was more fluent. I wish I could understand that person over there, that I'm listening into the conversation and I don't know what they're talking about. I can't understand it. It's too fast. I wish I was somewhere else. Instead of saying like, oh my God, I know so much more Spanish than I did when I first got here.
Exactly. And rewarding yourself for that. And it's the same with music. It's like, oh, I wish I could play this coda. Yeah. It's like, do you really? Because look how much fun you're having just learning it. The fun is in the learning of it. Right. The challenge is like, and music, as you know, is never like gradual improvement little by little. It's like you go along, you practice. It's like, when is this getting better? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's easy. Yeah. Because you've done it 149 times now, and now you're 150 of it. It's like, oh, it's easy. And then you go on to the next thing. It's one of the things I'm so grateful about being a pianist as opposed to, vocalist or an athlete where you can only do your thing for so long. Yeah. It's like pianists play well into their 90s. And it's like, it's true. I'm not doing that.
It's true. I know. I definitely think it would be hard to play the horn into your 90s. But the piano, you have, you use bigger muscles. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, even Rubinstein was playing, I heard on TV, one of his later performances, he was blind and he was still playing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Lisa, this has been such a powerful conversation for me personally, and I know it will be for my audience. And so I'm so grateful to have you on. And so tell me what's coming up for you. I'm going to put it in the show notes, but what can people watch from you?
So first of all, if you have a dog and whether they have an anxiety issue or not, or you just want to provide healthy auditory balance for your dog, myzenpet.com has a free playlist for you. At the time of this airing, look for it on streaming. If it's not out right then, it'll be out shortly afterwards. So look for it on your streaming channels. And I just came out with a new album, Left Hand Lemonade, which is all for 5 fingers, except for the piece by Zach Goluboff Davis written for 8 fingers for me. And Left Hand Lemonade Live. It was actually my last Facebook Live concert, my 30th of these. And also I teach online courses. So my 2 signature courses are Winning the Mind Game and Piano Ninja Tricks. And I'm launching a membership program with Piano Ninja Tricks. So check that out at my website at lisaspector.com.
Phenomenal. Okay, all of this stuff will be in the show notes. Check Lisa out. You're awesome, Lisa. I'm so excited for
you. You are too, Tracy. When I found out that you had a podcast called Crushing Classical, and I read the description, is like, this is my gal. This is like, I love this topic so much. So I'm so glad you're doing this. It's so needed. It's so needed to open people's minds to how they can create businesses with their classical music talent. So thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. And thank you. Thank you so much.